viewed at institutions. Would like to start this session by welcoming our sponsors who make all this possible. So we have Simon Moore from Promega. He's the Associate Product Marketing Manager. So he's here to share some of the solutions that they provide for ABRF members. Simon.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to raise this up a bit. So this is my first ABRF, but I'm really excited to be here in grad school. I definitely appreciated core labs, and so I'm excited to talk about Promega and our solutions that we're excited to share with you guys today. The title is on the slides, so let's get started. So when studying cell biology, it's very common to use a microplate reader that reports a number such as an RLU for luminescence or an RFU for fluorescence. We have an example plot shown here on the slide. Looks really great. You can see cells treated with various drug concentrations and their responses over time. You get really nice sigmoidal curves. What's difficult to determine, however, from that is where the signal is actually arising from. Is it coming from all the cells within your well? Is it 50% of them? Is it only one of them? And so that's why we're trying to step into the world of microscopy, because microscopy can allow you to tease apart that number a little bit. It can allow you to distinguish responders versus non-responders. You can identify rare events, and you can actually see inside of your cell where your signal is arising from. All of that leads to building confidence in your reports and overall in your findings. So when it comes to microscopy, as I'm sure you guys are all aware, the most commonly used type is fluorescence microscopy, and that's for a really good reason. There are a wide variety of fluorophores, instrumentation, and technologies that are available, and it's really kind of ideally suited for viewing concentrated targets in really great resolution. There can be some challenges, though, when studying dynamic events or kind of moving proteins, however, and the fact that you need an excitation light, you can run into issues with phototoxicity and photobleaching. And so, again, it's well used, but there are some challenges that come with it. If we contrast that with bioluminescence microscopy, we can see that there are some unique advantages. Bioluminescence is kind of uniquely suited to study protein dynamics and kind of live events. It doesn't use an excitation light. It uses a biochemical reaction with a substrate to generate your signal, and so you don't run into issues with phototoxicity or photobleaching. There are issues, however, that come with bioluminescence compared to fluorescence. It has a much lower photon flux, and so it's not really an issue, but you just have to compensate for that with much longer exposure times. With fluorescence, you can get away with millisecond-long exposures. With bioluminescence, you need seconds, minutes, or even several minutes. And traditional instrumentation to actually image bioluminescence has also been very expensive, and so a lot of people have kind of been turned away from it because it's cost prohibitive. And so at Promega, we're really excited to step into that realm and provide an affordable means to measure something that is really kind of uniquely suited and contrasted with fluorescence microscopy. And so to do that, I'm going to briefly go over our nanolux technologies, because that's kind of at the core of why you'd be interested in imaging bioluminescence in the first place. And so if you're unfamiliar with nanolux, it's a really small but very bright luciferase enzyme that enables a wide variety of technologies at Promega. These include the use of HYBIT, which is an 11 amino acid tag that allows you to study protein localization and translocation. We provide tools called nanobit and nanobret for studying protein-protein interactions. You can also study target engagement or ligand-protein interactions with nanobret as well. Protein degradation, protein stability is also a great way to study using HYBIT. And then lastly, natural killer cells in action, targeted cell killing can be studied with HYBIT. And so all in all, this kind of demonstrates that nanolux is a very diverse toolkit that allows you to study a lot of really interesting and kind of dynamic protein events that, again, wouldn't traditionally be easy to study with fluorescence. And so that leads me into how you're actually going to be imaging these technologies. The technologies are really cool, but again, there hasn't really been a means to image them successfully. And so this is our new Glomax Galaxy Bioluminescence Imager. It's our newest tool that's designed for the study of protein dynamics and cell physiology in both live and fixed cells and tissues. It has bioluminescence capabilities. It also has fluorescence capabilities, so you can use common cellular reference markers that you would typically be using with your fluorescence microscopy. As well, it also has bright fields, so you can study cell morphology. Our goal for this instrument was to make it very functional, but also very affordable. Again, traditional bioluminescence instruments have been very expensive. And so to do that, we made it so that there's only one fluorescence excitation module in the instrument at a time. These are interchangeable. However, limiting it to one at a time, again, kept the cost relatively low compared to traditional bioluminescence instruments. Another way we chose to keep the cost low was by pre-installing a single objective, a 20x objective, as opposed to a rotating turret of objectives. And so you can, in combination with the camera, get up to 100x digital zoom, so down to about 1.3 microns. So really great publication quality images, again, trying to keep the affordability of the instrument in mind. If you're interested in long-term kinetic imaging, so say targeted protein degradation over say 5-6 hours, we will be selling as an accessory a stage-top incubator that will allow you to regulate temperature, humidity, as well as gases. And so now the rest of my time, I'm gonna just go through some examples of how the GLOMAX Galaxy actually works, some examples of some really nice images. I know we all have kind of been joking about images are the greatest part of imaging, and so we'll focus the rest of the talk on that. This work was done by our R&D group at Promega, and so these are low abundance endogenous proteins, 5 of them, that range about 2 log in expression. These were all tagged with HiBit, that 11 amino acid tag, and then we introduced LargeBit. And so when HiBit and LargeBit come together, they form a fully functional nanoluc luciferase, and then you get luminescence emission at your protein of interest. And so there's a couple things I want to point out. As your expression decreases, you have to increase your exposure time, and so again, there's that big difference between fluorescence imaging and then bioluminescence imaging. What's really interesting to point out is as you go from 1 minute of exposure all the way up to 5 minutes of exposure for CASP3, you still see really great signal compared to the background, which again would be very difficult to see with fluorescence microscopy. And then a couple structures and interesting things from the images that I want to point out just because of my background. I did a lot of immunohistochemistry, so I like pointing out things in pictures. For cofilin, which is an actin capping protein, you can actually see the puncta around the leading edge of the cell, which is really great. And then for HDAC2 and 6, you can actually see the nuclei and the exclusion of the nucleoli, which again are about micron large structures that you can easily distinguish compared to the signal. And so again, you're getting really nice contrast in these images for this functional imaging. Oh, how do I go back? The red one?
The red one.
Okay. There we go. One more. Okay, let's try one more time. There we go. I just want to show the videos because the videos are my favorite part. Okay, so this is showing targeted protein degradation. So this is GSPT1. And so here we tag GSPT1, which is a translation termination factor that's been linked to leukemia. And again, this is one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest demonstrations of the galaxy. So it's showing long-term images of luminescent signal. And so here, they were again tagged with HiBit and treated with a molecular glue degrader, CC885. And then they were assayed with our nanoglow Vivazine live cell substrate, and then imaged over 5 hours. And so again, using that stage-top incubator to keep your cells really happy. And so hopefully you can appreciate, if you look at the cells that were treated with the molecular glue degrader as opposed to the DMSO control, the luminescent signal is dramatically decreasing over those 5 hours. And so what this decrease in luminescent signal is indicating is targeted protein degradation. You do see a little bit of signal decay in the DMSO control. Signal decay over 5 hours with luminescent signal happens, and so we just wanted to show that and be transparent. And you also see a little bit of cell death in the molecular glue degraded cells as well. And so the last example I'm going to go through is probably my favorite because I think it really highlights why having both luminescent and fluorescent capabilities on this instrument are really important. So this is highlighting our nanoBRET technology, which people typically use for target engagement studies. And so this is using a luminescent donor and a fluorescent acceptor. And so the addition of your fluorescent probe binds to your tagged protein of interest, and you actually get the acceptor channel lighting up as these two are very close to each other. And so you don't actually have to use any sort of excitation light to get your fluorescent signal. The energy is transferred from the luminescent donor. And so in an example like this, you would then be able to introduce some sort of unmodified small molecule that would compete with a fluorescent tracer. It would knock it out, and once bound, you would actually get a decrease in your nanoBRET signal, indicating that your target is actually being bound successfully. And so again, this is, I think, one of the strongest demonstrations of why having both luminescent and fluorescent in real time really allow you to strengthen your experimentation. And so with that, I want to say that the Glomax Galaxy is soon to be released. It'll be available mid to late 2024. We have it at our booth. It's number 514. We'd be really happy to go through it with you, chat, give you a closer look, and go through a little bit of these experiments in more detail. I only had 10 minutes, so I didn't really get to jump into that much detail. I also wanted to put up on there Mike Bierke. He's a product manager. He's been working really hard on developing this instrument, and he'd be more than happy to dive into the specs a little bit more if you're interested. But with that, I will say thank you. Again, I really appreciate you guys all listening to my talk. It's my first time at ABRF, and I've had a lot of fun, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon, for sponsoring and for engaging us at this conference. So, okay, can we load the presentation? So today, our session on advocating for cause, we have representations from 3 institutions, one which is highly decentralized, and one which is getting semi-structured, and we do also have a view from an independent institute. So you find out that in the examples you see in the presentation, the approach is non-linear. Okay, good. Let me see here. Okay, I think I went too far. Okay. So we have Soma from Florida State lead us off, and then followed by Kathy, Susan, and I'll conclude.
Wow. I did not expect this many people in the session when I suggested about 9-10 months ago. I generally do not have stage fright because I've been talking to people, and people usually tell me to shut up for 32 years. But this is really, really a huge crowd. Being a structural biologist, I gave a talk with 6 audiences 2 days ago. Wow, I am surprised, and honestly, I'm not prepared for such a large crowd. Therefore, I have only 6 slides. The idea is that we'll talk, and then we'll have more conversation. By the way, thank you for the organizers for putting us as a session. I guess we will continue to do this in the following years. I appreciate, and I also want to thank the panelists and the chair. As Claudius was saying, I'm going to give one set of views. I come from Florida State University, which is a state university. We are decentralized course. We have the president, you know, all the regular things. Also, we have VP for research, and also provost for governance and things like that. I'm going to touch upon just 3 or 4 issues here, and they are not entirely disconnected. There is a connection between each other. And the one key benefit I want to give is there is always a mutual benefit between you and administrator. I'm saying here administrator loosely. Between you and your chair, sometimes it is between you and the VP, sometimes it is between you and the provost. Because I'm going to touch upon slightly not exactly correlated things, but how do you get recognized by university? How do you get involved in the university's curriculum development, things like that. Even though we are core people, we do a lot of teaching and training, right? Those are the 4 issues, not entirely correlated, but advocating for yours. The first thing is, as I said, this is not a single person issue, right? We are in silos. I'm a single core person. I've been doing for 30 years, but still a lot of people did not know, even the next person did not know that I was there. Therefore, what we did was we actually formed a network of independent, all the cores were brought together, and we made a network first, right? And then in this network, as you know, there are people who are idea creators, right? These people have good ideas, but they may not have time or energy to help you. And there are some data, and they look at the numbers. Hey, this is metrics, like people like Claudius always looks at the metrics. Are you being used, or that kind of thing? You take care of them, and there are organizers, people like Joe, who put together a program like this, and they are the people. They are there in your university institution, and then there are networkers. The people can immediately talk to 10 different people like me. I just don't feel shy talking to a stranger. Therefore, what we want to do is get all these people together. They may not come to all your meetings, but the person who is not an extrovert may be the strength in your. Therefore, we used all of them to come up with some of these issues. The first thing is, I'm going to say governance and inclusion. This is what I said. We had a listserv set up so that we can talk to all our cores, because we are in whole FSU-wide. The cores are in all different places. Many of you know, you may have this kind of setup. And then we met, what we started doing was, if there is a university-wide announcement, you're going to have a new VP, new VPFA, VPR, new Provost. We went to those meetings. We spoke about it. We specifically said what cores do, how they impact research, right? Not all of them may not be interested in you. If you do not show up, nobody know you exist, right? As they say, the meeting is, and the world is run by the people who show up. Sometimes it worked for us. Once again, not all of you, not every time you can go, but try that. And we were able to do that. And then we had created a Florida core network based on CSER. Then we went to CSER meetings. Then we, of course, ABRF was very helpful to us. What happened is, because of this, we were included in the faculty meetings. Even though we are called specialized faculty in the university system, many departments didn't care about us. What they got from us is, because we are in the monthly faculty meetings, all the faculty told what worked, what did not work. We were able to tell what resources we needed. And sometimes 4 faculty wanted to buy an equipment. It was much easier because we were there in the meetings. It was not an easy task for us to do, but we were able to do. Then, as I said, the multi-department purchases were able to be bought because we were present in the faculty meetings. Finally, what happens is, like everywhere, strength in numbers, we were called as non-tenure track faculty. We cannot be tenured, therefore nobody bothered about us. And because of the strength, the 9-month faculty wanted us to be part of their union. We joined the faculty senate, completely surprising to us. 3 years ago, the economics department of the FSU is run by a non-tenure, as a chair is non-tenure track faculty. In the faculty senate, core facility, 2 of us out of the 10 people are, 3 of us are core facility people. That means you have voice in your senate. We may not be able to always advocate for everything, but at least that was happening. Sorry, I'm running behind. And the other thing what we did was, we built a FSU-wide, Claudius was the initiator for that. I completed after he went to Colorado. We built a university. It may not look very important to you. Many of you have in your university this kind of a system. There's a FSU-wide core facility network. You can put in keywords and get why they wanted to do what we got out of it. The university wanted to save money by having all the equipment they own in one place so that they can have a combined service contract, combined repair things, right? So that geographic savings. So if a person from a company comes, we can argue with them. You stay for a week instead of coming and back every week to avoid the travel costs, right? What we got out of this, that was what administration got. What we got out of it is, everybody knew where we were. Our names were there, our emails were there. We were being used efficiently for the work we do, the science we did. We got recognition, and that is one of the outcomes of this kind of scientific setup. The Provost supported this by giving me an undergraduate student. We have been doing this now for 10 years. Now, the whole state of Florida, interested in replicating this, is an open place. Anybody can go and look at it. Everybody knows what it is available to them. And if some instrument gets replaced, we update the database. The third one is professional development. As I said, because we became part of the Senate, we were able to advocate for, we simply took the faculty's sabbatical time off into professional development leave. Of course, as core facility people, we cannot be gone for 6 months at a time. We are now negotiating with the negotiating team, give us 3 months or 2 months or 6 weeks off so that we can be away, we can go to some other core facility, some other regional lab, national lab, get trained and certified and come back. You know what? When we negotiated with the collective bargaining unit, when we said their proposal was, no, we can't do that. We were trying to tell them, look, we cannot be gone for 6 months because the research will suffer. University's development will not be as good as if you are gone for a short time. When I was talking to the collective bargaining person from the staff side, Soma, look, administrators do not always see what is best for all of us. Everybody wants to have feeling of control. Therefore, now we are negotiating. What they said was, okay, if you are, the faculty can go for every 3 years sabbatical. Now they are telling you can do only for once in 5 years if you are taking the time off in intermittent period. We are negotiating. We are trying to see that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, but at least we are getting a paid time off, right? That's very important to go away and do stuff. Some of the things worked, and then once again, we were able to be included in the, as I said, when I went and spoke to the VPR when she came, she was very thrilled. I kept going to her meetings wherever she had an opportunity to talk. Look, cores are very important, because we are a department core. Nobody cares about us other than my chair, but I kept talking to her. Now, this year, she put core development and improvement as one of the FSU's research strategic goals. I bet if I had not gone and spoke to her when she came to be interviewed, I don't think she would have put that. I think that maybe, okay. Once again, this is the compensation. We are a small unit, but therefore we became part of the union. The state of Florida required 60% of the staff to be members of the union, otherwise we will be losing our bargaining. Guess what? Faculty wanted us, non-tenured track faculty, to be part of the union. We hit the 62% threshold. Now we are able to negotiate our salaries and better childcare, better parking. That's because we all stuck together and we are able to achieve that. I think that may be my last slide. And that's what, as I said, some of the things where I didn't cover all of them because we want to have a more talk afterwards, questions. And like some of the, we are able to get the professional thing, and some of the things we are not able to do are on the authorships. On the internal grant, we can be there, but not external grant. And we are unable to still understand how the PA-owned equipment is transferred to the core facility. Thank you for attention. We'll take the questions at the end of the talk. Thank you for everybody.
Hi, I'm Kathy Ramirez-Aguilar, and I'm here from a sustainability perspective. I did work in research labs for 15 years, and I watched the need for core facilities during that time. And in 2009, I pitched the idea of creating the Green Labs program at the University of Colorado Boulder. So I've been working in the Green Labs field for 15 years. And I will say about 10 years of that, at least, been advocating for shared research resources. Because I had a talk on Monday, and I shared this information, but shared research resources is a sustainable approach to science. It's more efficient, has many benefits. We have a list of 17 benefits, but definitely it fits into what the Green Labs community across the nation is promoting as green practices in labs. And so, how many of you, do you know if you have a Green Labs program on your campus or something similar, a lab sustain? Okay, great, there's a number of people. If you are not connected with your Green Labs community, I encourage you to get connected with them. They can be huge advocates for your core facilities and the growth of cores on campus. This is something that has been an ongoing important role, in my opinion, or important topic that we've been promoting in the Green Labs community at CU Boulder and other places as well. Just to give a little background of cores at CU Boulder, we do have decentralized cores, but I will say the interconnectivity of them is really growing. And that's because in 2019, the Vice Chancellor of Research Office embarked on hiring a Director of Cores and Shared Instrumentation. That was first filled by Claudius here in 2020, right before the pandemic, and then now is filled by Joe Dragavon. And so there's all these efforts to unify us. We have open houses and Shared Instrumentation Network there's a image down below, but this is how our scientists can find shared resources across our campus. And Green Labs, that I manage, we promote this shared instrumentation website frequently and part of systems that we do every year. So we also have a core group that is an opportunity for all the cores that I heavily participate in on strategic planning and a unified voice. Many of the cores across campus most of the cores are participating in that, but not all. Some issues with our decentralized approach is that the core funding varies between our departments. Access to cores also vary. Some are campus-wide, some are limited. Some of our departments are losing money by providing campus-wide access, but being the supporters of those. Regardless if it's decentralized or centralized, I will say from a sustainability perspective, there is just a gold mine of underutilized equipment resources in our individual labs. This my lab, my equipment mentality just leads to underutilized resources in the labs as research directions change direction. As research changes directions. And so, oftentimes our lab space becomes storage space in part for legacy equipment or materials that aren't being used. Has anyone else experienced this on their campus, by the way? Yeah. And in my opinion, what I am messaging across my campus from a sustainability perspective, connected to like climate action, energy master plan, and so forth, is that cores are a solution to this issue. Because if equipment had been in a shared facility instead of an individual piece of equipment in an individual lab, it wouldn't have mattered that that person's research didn't need it anymore, or that research group's research didn't need it anymore. Others could access it. So cores are a solution that I'm promoting on this, and this is really important from a sustainability perspective because this space is so energy intensive, and it's also expensive space. So the negative impact that the cluttering of the labs is having on lab space utilization is something that we can really work on our campus. And one of the things I presented on Monday was the Anschutz lab clean out project, and I think it's a great example of what is possible when we do start looking at cleaning out the clutter from the labs. So I'm just going to move on here. Our cores, of course, because we're decentralized, are managed under our department's institutes, but we do have Joe Dragavon's leading a task force that's defining and visioning for cores at our campus for the future. And I'm just going to move now into all the things that we are doing from a Green Labs perspective to really advocate for cores. And when we're advocating, we're aiming for both top-down advocacy and bottom-up approach. And so one of the things is that I participate a lot in campus-wide visioning and planning from a sustainability perspective, and as part of that, I'm advocating for cores as a solution. And so you can see the list there, but this poster on the right is a poster that my program created to advertise what came out of the Office of Space Optimization. It had nothing to do with being in these meetings where they were talking about guidelines for lab space allocation, but as you can see, the second one down there is increased equipment sharing. That is a direct reflection of all the advocacy that we are doing, that it got incorporated by this group of people that gathered that we weren't even present at, and the cores were not present at, that this was one of the solutions for allocation of laboratory space. We do a lot of postering. We've created lots of posters. They're up on our website promoting shared research resources, and we hang these around campus. We have about 300 poster holders around campus, and we're switching out with different messages. These are just 3 of the messages. We also do presentations for sometimes to leadership, sometimes just to departments and so forth, and we're continually advocating for shared research resources. One of the ongoing systems that we do is we do orientations for new graduate students coming in every single year, and every single year we're promoting shared resources in the Shared Instrumentation Network. Another thing that we do is for new faculty that are coming in to work at CU Boulder, we send out welcome messages to them. We say, welcome to CU Boulder. We have a Green Labs program here, and one of the things that's key in the message is that shared research resources is a more efficient and sustainable way of doing science, and here's the Shared Instrumentation Network, and here's the contact of the Director of Cores, and so forth. So we include that every year in emails going out. We do also Green Labs Awards. So we have an annual, it's going on actually today, and I'm going to be there tomorrow for the award ceremony, but our annual Sustainability Summit is going on, and since 2015, we've given 14 Green Labs Awards just related to equipment sharing. Of course, we give other awards as well, but 14 of all those awards that we've given over those years have been related to equipment sharing. And you might recognize the guy on the left there in the picture. And the key of this is that it gets shared in the media for the campus, and those that are presenting these awards are leadership, and they're reading the descriptions that we're writing about why shared research resources are so important. So, 14 since 2015, you can imagine, I think there was 1 year where we didn't have any award for equipment sharing, but we had multiple years where there were more than one award. So this is constantly, as you can see, this is ongoing every year, an important part of sustainability at CU Boulder for laboratory environments. We also promote that this is about cost savings. Yes, it's about climate action, but it's also about cost savings. So I mentioned the importance of space utilization. So like one poster that we had out was about the space savings that came from having a core facility, and then about how much money it is to have to build new laboratory space. So, and then of course, avoiding the duplication in the first place for the researchers. This is a cost avoidance also for the researchers. As I mentioned before, we have like 17 reasons of why. Some of them sustainability related, but many of them not sustainability related, about why cores are so important. And we're promoting this again from a sustainability perspective. I just want to leave with you that it's not just at CU Boulder that we're promoting shared research resources. The sustainability community in general, through the International Institute for Sustainable Labs and My Green Lab, as 2 examples, we're promoting shared research resources. And one of the things that I think reflects that is there's several documents or studies coming out from funding bodies or plans for including environmental sustainability perhaps in the future in grant language. And those are listing out shared research resources. I'd like to think that maybe we had a part of that. I believe we had a part of that because we've been promoting this even on those levels to granting bodies. And so I'm going to just leave you with the fact that in 2021, this U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Climate Action Plan came out, and there's a section on incorporating green actions or sustainability into the funding process, and it clearly mentions equipment sharing, but it's 2024. We haven't seen any action on it. So that is why this Million Advocates for Sustainable Science, the person that created this climate action plan, had told me at one point, this needs external support saying that we believe this is important to do this. And so we created the Million Advocates for Sustainable Science, which is a letter, a call to action. It's a letter to granting bodies around the world, actually not just HHS, but around the world, call to action to incorporate these green practices, environmental sustainability, things like shared equipment into the funding structure. And so if you want to take an Earth Day action, because this conference did happen over Earth Day, I encourage you to go to this website and to sign the letter and help us. We need the help from researchers to get more people to sign this, and so that this can be shared with granting bodies. And then I'll also just leave you with, I have all these posters that already hung around CU Boulder for the Million Advocates, and help me recycle them, bring them back to your campus, hang them up, and if you hang it up, maybe just 1 or 2 people will sign it. But if you start pointing to it and telling them why this is important, connected to the HHS Climate Action Plan and other funding bodies, then that'll have more impact. So I encourage you to come get some of these afterwards, or at the table, I'll be there after this as well. So thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to listen to us talk about how passionate we are about advocating for our shared resources. I am Susan Constable, and I manage the basic science shared resources at the Moffitt Cancer Center in Tampa, Florida. And I gotta say, it's cold up here in Minnesota. Oh my gosh. But nevertheless, I'm thrilled to be here to talk to you all this morning, to tell you about some of the efforts that we have made at Moffitt. And I want to say also that I'm very, very pleased that Kathy was able to join us today, because I'm also very passionate about supporting all of the efforts that she's made, because this is Earth Week, right? This was very, very serendipitous to be here on this day, and I will take some of your posters back as well. Oh yeah, okay. So advocating for our cores. We at Moffitt have centralized cores. Now, I'm sure you've all heard about the matrix cores and how difficult they are to manage, because they're here, they're there, and not one entity kind of measures and takes care of everyone. It's sort of disjointed. Now, centralized cores aren't necessarily the panacea either, but I do have a bit of an advantage, because I know what my chain of command is. And we manage up, and of course we manage down. And when you learn how to send that information up, and then you get that information back down, then that's obviously going to help advocate for the cores that you're either working in or the cores that you're managing. So I'm looking here at the centralized cores. Of course, we have our CEO of the Cancer Center. Obviously, at Moffitt, we treat patients. We see more patients. This is a commercial for Moffitt. We see more outpatient visits a year than Memorial Sloan Kettering. That's a lot. We do more bone marrow transplants at our institution than some of the bigger cancer centers here in the United States. So I'm very proud to work there. I can say that. I've been there over 20 years now. So it's a great place to be. But our CEO, Dr. Hu, and then our EVP Cancer Center Director, Dr. John Cleveland, and then our VP of Research, Brian Springer. We have 2 senior directors that I report to, John Schatzel and Ed Seho. Some of you may know who they are. They're also very active in some of these venues. Then, of course, there's the managers. There are, I believe, 3 of us that manage the larger groups. And then the core facility managers are basically the manager of the core, and they oversee all of their team members. We call them team members. They're not lab people, they're team members. That comes from HR. But once you start saying it, then it seems like the logical thing to say. Then obviously, if you're not a manager, a core facility manager, you may be a team lead or supervisor, and then obviously we have our team members, and that's where the boots are on the ground, okay? Of all of the core facilities, we have 14 in total. Now, we may have a few more like glass wash or, those sorts of shared facilities, but what I'm talking about are the centralized cores. They're translational science and biorepository. That's quite the mouthful. And then the basic quantitative and population science shared resources. They are all the dry labs, the biostatistics, bioinformatics, those sorts of shared resources where it's all basically done on paper or in silico, right? Okay, next. Governance and inclusion. There are many ways that, well, they're basically meetings, right? Meetings where everyone gets together and we all sing Kumbaya. But nevertheless, our core leadership committee, which is made up of our scientific directors, then our core facility managers, some members of our senior leadership that are very involved with the cores. We meet monthly, and this is mainly for our CCSG component. We want to be able to write in our reports, you know, our competitive reports and our annual updates that we talk about all these things. We're planning for the future, and we're meeting our goals that we said would do 5 years ago. This is how we keep ourselves in check and then look towards the future. Our scientific leadership committee, again, that is made of senior leadership that is very closely, again, aligned with our cores. They meet every other month. Our core advisory committees, now these are usually the PIs or the faculty who use our cores. We have a chair, and then we have 2 other members, and obviously then we have administrative folks and administrative supports who take the minutes. But these are where a lot of the decisions are made, where we're looking at the results of the customer surveys that we took earlier that year, and like an overwhelming majority of our respondents said, we need X technology in this core. And okay, well, let's discuss this. Is this something that we really need to purchase and then bring into the core and then add that as a service for all of our faculty members? Our research executive committee, they meet monthly, and again, they make a lot of the decisions about the decisions. If we decide that, okay, we want to buy this $800,000 mass spectrometer because we have a new faculty member coming that specializes in metabolomics, and we don't quite have that spectrometer again. All right, they're going to say, yes, we want to commit that amount of money to make that purchase later on. So again, it seems to be the committee that oversees the committee that makes those decisions, but those are how do those things happen. Our departmental and faculty meetings are how we get out and we talk to the faculty and our customers and let them know that we have these services available or this core is available. How many of you have had a customer find out accidentally that you did the service? You're like, really? Yeah. You didn't know? You did that? Or even worse, they didn't even know you existed, you know, like, really? You didn't know we had this availability? Like, what rock have you been under? But unfortunately, that seems to be how things are. You don't know what you don't know. So unless you get the word out, that's gonna continue to happen. As everyone has mentioned previously, new faculty members that are introduced to the shared resources, not only when they come to interview for the positions, once they are hired and they're on board, we want to meet with them again, because they generally have research that are tied very closely to certain cores, like flow cytometry or proteomics or molecular genomics. So we want to get them integrated right away. So we start to brainwash them as soon as we can. Okay, we're not brainwashing them, but we want them to know that we're here and they're our customers, and we're gonna go that extra mile to meet their expectations as long as they're within reason, right? You always have to manage those expectations. And then last but not least, our core satisfaction customer surveys that we do yearly. You're really missing out on a great opportunity if you're not asking, you know, how your customers are perceiving their service. Are we meeting their expectations? What could we do better? Or what equipment, obviously, could we add that we don't have now? Or maybe there's something that we're doing that we could sunset because things are changing and some technologies you just don't do anymore. And it might be easier just to send it out commercially. It's less expensive to do that than to do it in-house. And that's happened with Sanger sequencing. We don't do that in-house anymore. It all goes out to GeneWiz or, I don't know, there's several other commercial companies that do that. But that's where a lot of these decisions start. They bubble up, they get discussed, and then we make it happen. Visibility and recognition. Again, nobody knows you existed. Well, these are some ways that we try to commercial, you know, we have a commercial for ourselves. The QR code there on the left is basically what I give out when I go to job fairs or other meetings where you can't get into the intranet inside Moffitt, because that's only for people in Moffitt. So the intranet is where you'll find this information about Moffitt. You can go there and you can see all of our cores, see everything that we do, all of the people that work there, all of the services that are provided, and the contact information, obviously. You want to know how to get a hold of someone, that's where you're going to find it. Now, inside Moffitt, you'll see here the Collaborative Data Service Core, and that's a very fancy name for it. These are the folks who work with the faculty or the investigator who wants to look at the data that's been collated. So they want to know how many women over the age of 35 have had this type of breast cancer, and you know, and the treatments that they've had, you know, because we just don't let people mine that data willy-nilly. They have to be able to get permission to do that, and they go through our, I'm lacking for the term right now, the gatekeeper, for the lack of a better term, it'll come to me. But the CDSC helps them with that. So all of the cores, you're gonna find the web pages online that have all of the same type of information when you go to, you know, so that's a good place to be recognized online. And if you're not doing that, again, that's a great opportunity you're missing. So you're able to, again, advocate for your core, and you don't even really need to be there. But don't forget to keep it updated. Don't do it 5 years ago and never look at it again. Sometimes that happens as well. Professional development. Again, another way to advocate for the team members in your cores. You want to keep those folks that are working for you, that are doing those fabulous jobs. You want to keep them. You don't want them looking for another job. So that's a way for staff retention, is the professional development. I have 2 team members who may be here today that came to actually, they both gave presentations, so I'm very proud of them as well, here at the ABRF the first time. So I'm hoping that they will go back and talk to some of the other team members and say, wow, that was a great opportunity for, you know, to go to actually to the meeting. Now, every team member that works in the basic science shared resources, we can't fly them all here to the meeting. Who's going to be back to do all the work? But we do make them members of the ABRF, you know, through the opportunities that ABRF affords for the organizations, and they generally listen to the meeting after the fact. They also attend a lot of the online meetings that are presented at least like twice a month. I think the ABRF has things for the different molecular genomics and, you know, the different R&R ways, you know, rigor and reproducibility. I mean, I can't say that enough, you know, being able to ensure that what you're doing can be repeated, especially when somebody's reading it in a publication. Collaboration between cores and outside institutions, again, another way to raise the level of visibility, and then obviously they're looking back to say, wow, they really do a great job at Moffitt. I would like to, you know, get on your coattail and perhaps collaborate. So that's another way to be able to advocate for your core. The ABRF group membership, I just mentioned that. A defined career pathway for the core staff. I've heard a lot this week about core ladders and being able to, with the help of HR, define those ladders that are used for each of the different core facilities, because they're not always apple to apples. Some of your core facilities may have a very higher level of knowledge that has to be gained to be able to do the type of work that they're doing. Hence, their compensation might be a bit more. So that's, you know, how you want to get involved with HR and have them go to the different websites that look at the market for those types of positions and be able to compensate them correctly. Provide professional development opportunities for core staff. I'm repeating myself. And of course, the biggest thing I believe is the inclusions of the core role in your cancer center or your institution's strategic plan. You have to make sure that everything that you do is in line with just the strategic plan for your institution. Promotion and compensation. I'm sort of rehashing what I've already said about the opportunities on my last slide here, but the established ladders. We have a promotion review committee that we meet at least quarterly, that we will consider applications for team members to be promoted to the next level. We award merit increases annually. Once a year, our HR department conducts a market adjustment where they're going out and looking at the different positions, and it's institutionally wide. They look at every position, and it may be an opportunity to say, well, this position commands, you know, we want to raise that another 5 or 6%. And it seems to go in cycles where one year there might be one class of a basic science shared resources get a market adjustment. This past year, almost every one of my core team members got a very nice bump. And of course, we include that in our fee schedule. Obviously, you know, we have to pay for that somehow. And then new job descriptions. You can't, nothing stays the same. Our jobs aren't the same as they were 5 years ago, let alone last year. So keeping up with those job descriptions, that's another way to be able to help with the promotion and compensation, and again, advocating for your team members. And I think I'm just about done here. Yes, and I think this is for our glorious chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I think we have heard from our speakers as they were letting us know how long they've been at their institutions. I've done the math here. So we have over 105 years of experience on this stage, ranging from 20 to 35 years. So I'd like to take just 5 minutes to conclude this session. As you could appreciate, the examples that you had, they are varied. They look sort of nonlinear. They are chaotic. I mean, if you are listening to all these efforts, you think this is way too much. How can one person do this? So we'd like to end here with just a basic framework in which we can actually look at most of these initiatives here. So first of all, you need to know your team. So you should know your team's values, you should know your institution's values, and you should know how to deliver those values to those specific, and that's the framework that you need. For example, knowing your team, so you need to engage each individual team member knowing what motivates them. So you need to excite them. And once they're excited, you always need to harness all that energy. So you need to unify everyone within the core team. So once that is done, you then sit down with the team, unified. Just like in a game of chess, you don't start moving the pieces until you look at the board. What does the board look like? What are we going to do? What do we need to achieve? So with the whole team, you list all the actors. You map them on a grid. You have to decide who is on our side and how much support, how much power do they have, and who is opposed to us and how much power do they have. So that is very, very important, because this is important because you need to act to make sure that you get all the people who are supporting you on your side. You need to also understand that there are always people within that organization who have other needs for the finite resources we have. So those things, those groups need to be sort of weakened in opposition to your, and then you need to be intentional about what you do. This is going to be a very sustained effort, as you can appreciate. With 105 years of effort, the struggle still continues in this case. So you need to harmonize the group. So you need to know why you are there, how you're going to do it. So you need to know your footprint, and you need to curate your footprint in messaging, in value, and who you talk to. And then after you do this, you always need to lead with value. Everything that you do, we know we have a list of needs, but we need to identify what is the core value that we need for each specific group. And for that specific group, always know that we are going to lead with this same value. And every time any of those stakeholders see you, they know you are bringing value to them. So it's easier to engage someone who comes in with value. So after you've defined what value propositions you need to then go back to your list of key stakeholders and identify what stakeholder needs to be engaged and what value proposition need to be in place for that specific stakeholder. So as you could appreciate from these presentations, we have to work not just with the senior admin, we have to work from the bottom up and from the top down. So we need to simultaneously engage the whole ecosystem. So that's why it looked a little bit more chaotic in the way the examples were provided. So I would like to end with this cycle. So first of all, engage. You need to excite people. Exciting means that there's an alignment in what you're providing, and then you need to unify that, crystallize your value proposition, know your ecosystem. You need to know who the ecosystem is. It's not just your users. It extends from the undergrad in your lab all the way to the lawmakers in the state capital. That's your whole stakeholder. And then you need to make sure that you curate your footprint so that your message is consistent, persistent, and it's also always in line with the strategic needs of the institution. And then identify all that whole ecosystem, always lead with value, always lead with value. And then place the value proposition directly to the stakeholder that needs to hear the message. So in 2020, during the pandemic, there's a group of a stakeholder group from ABRF that was put together by FASEB. We came up with a report. There's a 2021 FASEB task force report. This report details all these examples we have had on this stage. So I encourage you to search this report. It's on the ABRF website so that you can read it. It has all the details about the activities that are being undertaken at every institution. So I would like to leave a lot of time for questions, and we stop here. So the mics are in the aisles. Joe.
Hi. Since I have you here and I took your job, I was hoping you could help me do the job you were doing. Not specifically for my institution, so this is more of a broader question for all of you. How do you figure out which metrics or which values you can give to impact your administration to see the value of the course? One of the biggest challenges I face is to say that, yes, we are important, but how do I demonstrate that to them, and how do I figure out what it is they want to hear?
I have the answer for you. It all depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to somebody that owns the purse strings, you want to talk about finances. If you're talking to someone who might be more interested in the number of publications, the number of grants, that's the kind of the information that you want to mine for them. So it's the audience that you're speaking to. And in this paper that Claudius has mentioned, and there's also some other articles that are in the ABRF website that we've also worked on. These are the types of information that you want to dig out for the audience that you're talking to, because it's not one size fits all. It just all depends on who you're talking to. So you have to figure out what interests them the most, and then you just kind of pile on it and go for it, and generally that'll work for you.
I know Claudius is going to hate what I'm going to say, but metrics are good, right? I agree, metrics are good. That when we set up that FSU-wide core facility network, we can see how many people are visiting, right? But I come from an educational institution. I'm the only core who does X-ray crystallography. If you look at the number of people who are going to a cloning lab or a genomics lab, my numbers are not that high. But we as an institution have a responsibility to do good science, right? There may be very few people who come to my facility. That is where what we leverage rather than our numbers, our PIs talk for us. Without Soma's X-ray crystallography facility, my research cannot be done, right? My numbers are not high. I'm shutting down my lab because the facility is not doing well, but still they support me because the kind of work I do, that is where you need the partners, right? Numbers are great, I'm not denying. It may work for some places where the bottom line is the bean counter's bottom view, but science and the work we do has a value. It has an impact in the way we do. That is where you want to have a good relationship with your users and tell them, when the PIs go and talk, my grant depends on it, my research depends on it, my papers have impact. That is beyond the numbers you do, right? That is why you bring your faculty, you bring your people who use your facility and talk for you. I know these numbers are great, I am not denying that, but your research, that's what we are here for. Right? I didn't leave my lab for 31 years. I love talking to students, right? We have very small 25 graduate student program. We exclusively work in structural biology. We have 6 core facility in my building. There is 50 faculty in chemistry. They have 2 core facility. That shows your impact, right? The numbers are great, but your PIs and the people who use are also your advocates. Thank you.
Oh, is it on? The mic's on? Hello? Yes, okay. So I just wanted to say, I agree with what Susan said. In my opinion, it depends who you're talking to. I'm often on the infrastructure side talking, so not as much maybe with the Vice Chancellor of Research. Obviously, you're gonna have different metrics if you're gonna talk to that. But I do think the space utilization piece is huge. We're all creating climate action plans. In my opinion, the space savings, the more optimized use of laboratory space that the cores can contribute to, there is such large dollar figures associated with that, but also large energy efficiency, improved energy efficiency that can come from that. And I just think that that is so key on that side, because we're writing the climate action plans. They're going to be so expensive to implement. Well, if this can bring big cost savings, and that's going to be important. Not only is it helping to achieve the goals, but it's also going to bring cost savings as well, or avoided costs, maybe I should say more. This is going to bring avoided costs to the growth of research on our campuses. So I'll end with that.
Hi, thank you so much. I kind of tying into some of what you talked about with cost savings by having things in a shared space and not having them all over campus. I kind of have both a question and a vent. I'm kind of curious about how to keep, and I know, some of the vendors may be here, but, we have to work with our vendors, but often we'll have vendors who are visiting multiple places on a campus or talking to multiple people and selling their same box everywhere they go and things like that. And how do we kind of, I guess even beyond advertising, how do we get the campus to understand that this is a core project, that this is something that should be in a core or already is in a core? Often that's part of the issue. And then it ends up being like a dusty box of something that sits in the corner. That's a waste of space, a waste of money. It gets used once and then it never gets used again. We already have 3 in the core, something like that. Like how do we talk to our campuses about that to kind of get them to think about these things a little bit better before they jump to buy the next hot thing, and then they use it once and it sits dusty after. We call it a boat anchor. I'm here in Minnesota, and so it's kind of like, we have a lot of lakes, so we call them boat anchors. They sit in the corner at some point, and then you take them out to the lake.
Oh my goodness. Well, I just wanted to say that, in my opinion, one of the things I want to ask ABRF to do is to start to really recognize, and a lot of us already do this, but I think there's still some culture among the science community where cores are for that expensive, sophisticated equipment that only can go in a core because it's so costly to buy it. And really, the most untapped potential, and I think this gets to the kits that you're talking about, or the boxes, the most untapped potential is really in that mid to lower cost. These are the items that are mostly cluttering up our labs, because we're already doing really well at putting the expensive items into core facilities. Where there is so much untapped potential, and again, it's related to space too, as I spoke about before, is in this mid to lower cost. And we have amazing examples. There's people here that are running cores that are not for the just expensive equipment. The example that I gave up on my slides and I gave on Monday is about the biochemistry shared cell culture facility. I mean, right, a biosafety cabinet, what is that, like $12,000? Most researchers can afford to buy that, but our case study shows there is so much cost avoidance to the university and to the researchers for doing a core facility around that. So I really think we need to message that this is more than just the expensive equipment. So that's how I'd answer your question.
Let me answer slightly differently. As I come from an educational institution, the PIs drive the instrument purchases, right? That is why the administration funded me to find that the FSU-wide equipment. The idea behind this, when the PI comes, they tell, okay, you want to buy this equipment, look at this, whether it is there. We will support buying you a modular arrangement to that, upgrade to that. And then like every other places, we call orphaned instrument. The PI leaves or they don't want it. After third year, after they call their usage is over, they are begging for a course to take their equipment because they can't afford the service contract, right? This is the big problem we are seeing, because they want to use the equipment the prime years, and then therefore what I'm talking to our VP is, okay, I am an ordinary person, not like Claudius. I'm an ordinary person. I'm just running a core. I am talking to VP, look, we have to come up with some solution to this problem, because PAs are 3 pay grade above me. How do I convince them? They won't listen to me. Who cares about Soma? What we are trying to do is, we tell VPR, okay, we will let the PIs keep the equipment in the course. The advantage is, we take care of it, we get trained. PIs don't have time to train the students, right? Then to compensate for that, VPR pay the service contracts. Therefore, they get, the PIs get to have the access to the equipment. It is well maintained, well trained. That's one approach. We are not there yet. That could be a one solution. Because we see all orphaned equipment when PI finds another job to go somewhere. Their specialized equipment, nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows how to use it. Nobody, even though it's a $500,000 equipment, right? It just sits there and it gets neglected. Sorry.
Hi, thank you guys all for your talks. I know user surveys were mentioned, which we do implement. I'm at the Salk Institute, so relatively small. We only have 8 cores. Do you do one survey for all of your cores, or do you implement separate surveys for each cores? And also, how do you try to encourage people to answer? Do you guys have any ways you encourage feedback?
Unfortunately, there's really no good way to get people to take the surveys.
Hard.
Generally, the folks who do take the surveys are the ones who really like you or the ones who want to kill you. So you have to weed through those. And over the years, it's changed from one long, giant survey where all of the cores, and obviously I think that became too laborious, so that just quit taking in the middle, then you'd find all of these unanswered questionnaires. So through the years, we've worked with one of our cores who do all of the instrument surveys for the patients who take all of the the cores who makes all of the questionnaires, who the PIs who are doing the surveys for the patients who are undergoing treatment. And so they use all of their instruments, so to speak, and they help us design these. So once you say, okay, I use proteomics, only those questions show up.
Yeah,
so it's a little easier to take, but it's still, for every 100 you send out, you might get back 20, and you consider that a success.
So 1 or 2 questions.
Selma, my question's for you. With your equipment, FSU equipment, link, find the things. 1, how do people know to find that where you are? Like, where does that actually live, that people are seeing it? And 2, I wasn't sure, is it just core facility equipment? Is it all capital equipment? Is it a manual input? Is it reading it from procurement? How's that working?
Yeah. As I said, it's a 10-year project. The idea was actually done by Claudius when he was there with us. And then I built it. It took us quite some time. Therefore, what we did was the university maintains, the finance administration maintains all the equipment when they are purchased.
Yep.
And we have a tag number, we call the FSU tag number.
Okay.
Therefore, what I did was I went to the database, downloaded the data. It is all done manually. It looks fancy now, but it's all done manually. Then Excel spreadsheet gives to you. Therefore, it tells you where the equipment is, who owns it, which building, which room. Everything is there in Excel spreadsheet, right? Therefore, we worked with so many people. Everybody helped because Provost said it should be done, right?
Yep.
We got that data, and then we built a new database, and there's something called AIM, which is universities' property management database, right? It may be something else you all have. That is where it tracks your Jeeps, your cars, where your AC machine, everything.
Yep.
We piggybacked on the AIM database, and we used the 600 or 800 equipment into that. And because everything is done, it looked very nice for us. That's because we were talking to people at the facilities department, not the core facilities, the facilities people. And then what I do is the provost provides me with an undergraduate student for every year. And then this student goes to every core facility person, hey, you have this many equipment, are they still there? Did they go bad, or are they in repair? He updates it, and we upload manually on the back end of this AIM database. The next day morning it shows up. To question, it has the Google map, it has name of the person, it has the email, phone number. If they have a publicly available user manual, it is included, the photographs are there. So that it's all looking from, not from the VPFA's point of view, but a user point of view. You go and look at it,
Yep.
there are multiple pictures of the same equipment. That is
Okay.
how we built it. It took
So
us
if
some time.
someone has done this with an automated way that's less manual, let me know, please, because I don't think we can go to every core facility and do this, but I love that you have it. But if anybody has a solution, great, find me later, great, yeah.
Quick question to the chairman. How do you excite your people? You mentioned excitement, and to me, excitement and motivation is a very, very individual thing, but I believe that it weighs very heavily on this entire process you pictured as a circle for the process to be successful. So do you just give them like a general pep talk, or is your approach more individual? I'm very curious to hear, because it's such an individual thing, that's why.
And that's why. It's an individual thing. I think you have to be intentional. You have to build relationships. You have to talk to scientists as people, just like you talk to your friends. Know them, understand them, what motivates them. They come to these institutions as whole people. They don't just come as scientists. So you need to know, if you have the opportunity to lead the group, you need to know who they are, and you need to be very, very intentional about their needs, what motivates them, what are the constraints, where do they want to go. So once you understand that, you then pick key value points that unifies a same theme throughout the whole organization, and then that becomes your way to build unity amongst them. But it is individual. It is an individual endeavor. You need to take time to listen. It's a listening thing. There's no substitute to that. So it's an individual thing. Thank you very, very much. And we have 105 years of experience here. Please come in.
Don't forget your posters.
I'll take one of your posters.